Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we're taking a really fascinating plunge into the history of women's roles in African societies.
Mm.
We'll explore how these roles shifted, profoundly shifted actually, especially with colonialism, and why understanding this whole arc is just so crucial for Africa's future.
Absolutely.
Our sources paint a really rich, sometimes surprising picture, and our mission, yours and mine, is to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge, those surprising facts, for you. Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah, our goal today is basically to journey through time, uncovering some really powerful historical evidence.
Right.
We want to show you how women weren't just sort of there, but were significant drivers of culture, economy, you name it, in pre-colonial Africa.
Key drivers.
Key drivers. Then we'll look at how colonialism came in and just dramatically disrupted those established roles. And finally, why empowering women today isn't only about justice, though it is, but it's a critical strategy, really, for tackling the big challenges the continent's facing right now. It's a vital part of global history that, frankly, deserves a spotlight.
That's a perfect way to frame it. And, to kick us off, let's challenge some common assumptions.
Good idea.
Because what's truly remarkable when you delve into this history is just how diverse pre-colonial Africa's gender dynamics were. There's often this sort of monolithic idea of a universally patriarchal continent.
Right, that single story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But our sources paint a much more nuanced and, honestly, much more interesting picture.
You've really hit on a crucial point there. While, it's not accurate to say all pre-colonial societies were matriarchal, no. But many were indeed matrilineal or had systems where women held substantial influence, often operating in complementary, sort of distinct spheres of power alongside men.
Okay, so side-by-side power structures.
In many cases, yes. Now, of course, patriarchal elements did exist in some societies, even before colonialism. We have to acknowledge that. But the overall landscape was incredibly varied.
Right.
And here's a crucial insight that often surprises people. Power wasn't always just top-down or exclusively male. Many societies had this remarkable dual-sex governance model.
Dual-sex governance.
Yeah, where male and female leadership existed side by side, each with clearly defined responsibilities. Think about the Ashanti Empire in southern Ghana. You had powerful queen mothers who didn't just advise kings, they ruled alongside them. And they even had the final say in who became king.
Wow, selecting the king.
Selecting the king. And in the old Oyo Empire, modern-day Nigeria, women were absolutely instrumental in installing kings.
So these aren't minor roles.
Not at all. And we also see powerful individual female rulers. Queen Amina of Zaza, Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba. These were formidable monarchs in their own right, shaping empires.
And it also makes you wonder what Hollywood movies we've missed out on, doesn't it?
Exactly. These weren't just background figures. They were leaders making history.
So beyond that clear political influence, how deeply were women woven into the economic fabric? Was it mainly local stuff, or did they have a wider reach?
Oh, their economic contributions were absolutely central and widespread. Women were heavily involved in agriculture, sure, particularly cultivating the food crops that sustained whole communities. That's fundamental.
Bedrock.
The bedrock. But their reach went way beyond the local farm. Think about the famous market women of West Africa, particularly in Yoruba society.
Okay.
They didn't just participate, they controlled local markets. They were key figures in long-distance trade. And through this, they accumulated significant wealth and, importantly, autonomy.
Real economic power, then.
Real economic power, vital for the survival, the prosperity of their societies. And it wasn't just trade either. Women showed incredible artisanal skill.
Like what?
Well, archaeological finds from, say, new culture areas in Nigeria show their involvement in crafts like weaving clothes, making baskets, beads, ceramics. And up in the Sokoto Caliphate, northern Nigeria, women were highly skilled spinners, dyers, weavers, even managers in the textile industry there.
Managers, too. Interesting. So their influence really permeated, it sounds like, every layer of society. That cultural and social power must have been foundational.
It truly was. And remember, many pre-colonial societies were matrilineal.
Right, you mentioned that.
Yeah, meaning lineage, inheritance. It was all traced through the mother's line, not the father's.
Yeah, what you mean.
Which means women had considerable power over things like land, wealth, family structures. You see this with the Akan of Ghana, the Bemba of Zambia, the Chua of Malawi, among others.
Okay.
And women were also just deeply respected within the extended family as mothers, aunts, grandmothers. They formed the very foundation of many societies. Plus, they often held significant roles in the spiritual life of their communities.
Ah, the spiritual side, too.
Definitely. And that often translated directly into social and political influence. There is a Yoruba saying, Orisa bi Iakosi, which means there is no deity like a mother. That tells you something about the reverence.
Wow. So what's the biggest takeaway here for someone listening trying to grasp all this complexity? It sounds like pre-colonial Africa wasn't one thing at all, but this vibrant continent where women's influence was incredibly diverse, incredibly profound. Politics, economy, culture, in ways we just don't often appreciate.
That's it exactly. Forget the single story. Think diversity, think influence, think complexity.
Okay, so we've explored this rich, often really overlooked past. But then, as you said, came a turning point, a seismic disruption that would profoundly reshape these roles. The arrival of European colonialism.
Yeah, this is where we see a really dramatic shift. And what's fascinating, in a, well, often tragic way, is how the arrival of European colonial powers led to this significant, usually detrimental change in gender dynamics. Now, we said patriarchal elements existed before.
Right, some places.
But colonial rule didn't just bring new patriarchal norms. It actually took existing inequalities and made them much worse. It kind of baked them into the new laws, the official systems.
Systematized it.
Exactly. Systematized it. It fundamentally changed how societies were organized. Colonial administrations, coming from Europe with their own patriarchal views, just saw women as subordinate to men.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Which must have clashed hard with some of these systems we just talked about.
A huge clash. A stark contrast to many indigenous African systems where women had their own, recognized spheres of influence and power. Colonial legal systems, for example, they frequently gave men precedence. Marriage, divorce, land ownership, men came first. This directly eroded women's traditional rights.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Take the British in Asante in Ghana. From 1901, they only recognized male rulers as the official native authority.
Only men.
Only men. It wasn't until, wait for it, 1947 that a female ruler was officially acknowledged by them.
Wow, nearly 50 years later.
Almost half a century. That tells you something about the mindset.
That systemic bias must have had a massive economic ripple effect then. How did it hit women's financial independence?
Oh, hugely. The new cash crop economies, the wage labor systems introduced by colonial powers, they overwhelmingly favored men.
Right. Men got the paying job.
Pretty much. Women were increasingly pushed into subsistence farming, into domestic roles, which, yes, was vital work, but it undermined their economic independence. It made their labor less visible, less valued in this new colonial economy.
Undervalued.
And on top of that, colonial land policies often stripped women of their traditional land rights, further cutting down their economic power and control over resources.
So their economic base eroded. And politically, it sounds like their traditional authority wasn't just ignored, it was actively taken apart.
Actively dismantled is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Colonial rulers often ignored, or deliberately dismantled the existing political structures that included women.
How?
Well, they'd exclusively recognize male leaders. Think of the infamous warrant chiefs in Nigeria and Asante.
Ah, yes, the warrant chiefs.
Appointed by the colonizers, often with no traditional legitimacy, and always men. This effectively just pushed women right out of political decision-making.
And education played a role, too.
Definitely. Missionary education systems, which became widespread during this period, often reinforced these changes. They tended to promote very narrow domestic roles for women, further limiting their access to leadership positions or formal economic opportunities.
So it was a multi-pronged disruption. Just severe and widespread.
Severe and widespread is right. And, while the impact was generally negative, it's worth remembering that colonial experiences did vary a bit, depending on who was colonizing: British, French, Portuguese, and the local situation. Nuances, exactly. But the general trend was towards marginalization. However, and this is crucial, African women didn't just passively accept all this.
No.
No way. The Aba Women's Revolt in Nigeria in 1929 is a powerful example. Thousands of women rising up collectively against unfair taxes and those warrant chiefs. Real resistance.
A reminder that history isn't just things happening to people.
Precisely. Which leads us to, the important question. How has this deep historical legacy actually impacted the present day?
That brings us perfectly to our next point, because our sources make a really powerful, compelling case. Women's empowerment isn't just, a nice to have. It's presented as a fundamental solution to so many of Africa's current challenges.
Yeah, if we connect all these threads, connect this history to the bigger picture today,
Hmm.
empowering women isn't just about justice, although it absolutely is about rectifying those historical wrongs we talked about.
Right.
It's also a crucial, really strategic necessity for addressing so many critical issues facing Africa right now. Take economic development.
Uh,
Economically empowering women is seen by many experts and backed by data as the key, or at least a key, to unlocking sustainable development.
how so?
Well, when women get access to education, financial resources, market opportunities, they become incredibly powerful drivers of economic growth. We see this with things like microfinance programs, women's cooperatives. They've shown real success, enabling women to become financially independent, contribute more to their households, their communities.
And there's data on
Oh,
this.
yeah. World Bank studies, for instance, show that gender equality in education and employment can significantly boost GDP growth, especially when you consider that women make up something like 70% of the agricultural workforce in sub-Saharan Africa.
70%. Imagine unleashing that potential fully.
Exactly. Imagine the untapped potential there.
So it's not just about individual women succeeding, but about the ripple effect on whole societies, whole economies.
Precisely. And it goes beyond the economy. Women's empowerment is linked to a whole range of positive social outcomes.
Like better health and education?
Yes. Educated and empowered women are statistically more likely to have healthier children, children who get better educations themselves. This helps break cycles of poverty across generations.
Makes sense.
Plus, empowerment is absolutely essential for challenging and changing those deep-rooted societal norms that perpetuate gender inequality and, sadly, gender-based violence.
And politically, does more women in power make a difference?
The evidence suggests it does. Increased representation of women in leadership positions in parliament is consistently associated with more inclusive, more effective governance.
Are countries making progress there?
Many African countries have made really significant strides in increasing the number of women in parliament and leadership roles. Think about Rwanda.
Rwanda comes up a lot in this context.
It does. It has one of the highest female parliamentary representations globally, an incredible 61% back in 2023. And studies suggest this correlates with policies that really prioritize social welfare and stability.
So the link is there. And this historical marginalization, especially economically, politically, it continues to play out today, doesn't it? Particularly with something like climate change. How does their past vulnerability connect to their present struggle with environmental shifts?
It's a direct, unfortunate link. That historical marginalization makes women disproportionately vulnerable to climate change impacts today.
How specifically?
Well, think about it. As the primary food producers in many areas, as the main managers of local natural resources like water and firewood, women are often right on the front lines when droughts hit or floods or rainfall becomes erratic. They bear the brunt. And then there's what's often called the water burden.
The water burden.
Yeah. As climate change makes water scarcer in many places, it's usually women and girls who have to travel longer distances to collect it.
More work, less time for other things.
Exactly. It massively increases their unpaid labor and drastically cuts down their time for education or for earning an income.
But despite this vulnerability, are women involved in finding solutions?
Absolutely pivotal. Despite everything, African women are crucial in spearheading climate action. They often leverage their traditional knowledge, deep knowledge of sustainable agriculture, water management, preserving biodiversity.
Can you give an example?
The Greenbelt movement in Kenya is a classic, powerful example. Founded by the Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai.
Wangari Maathai.
Of course. It empowers rural women to combat deforestation by planting trees, but it also fosters their leadership skills at the same time. It's a fantastic model.
So they're victims, but also agents of change.
Very much agents of change. And we're seeing policy progress, too. As of August 2023, something like 40 out of 41 African countries that submitted their updated climate action plans, the NDCs, included gender considerations.
That's progress.
It is. And at the grassroots level, you see amazing things. Women's groups in Somalia designing sustainable water schemes, organizations like RFLD in West Africa mobilizing networks of women-led groups for climate action.
So there's momentum. Are there still challenges?
Oh, absolutely. Challenges remain. Gaps in real participation, the need for better, more transparent data, really getting gender properly integrated into state agencies. There's work to do. But the direction is clear. Empowering women is central to climate resilience.
So for you, the listener, why should you care about this deep dive? It really comes down to understanding that empowering women in Africa isn't just, a regional issue over there. It's a global imperative. It has direct relevance to sustainable development, to creating equitable societies, and building resilience against huge challenges like climate change, which ultimately affect us all. So we've journeyed through quite a bit of time, haven't we? Started with those prominent, incredibly diverse roles women held in pre-colonial Africa.
The rich history.
Then we navigated the really profound, disruptive impact of colonialism, which systematically marginalized women in so many ways.
A major turning point.
And finally, we've arrived at today, looking at this vital imperative of women's empowerment for Africa's future. Understanding this whole historical arc, it isn't just about looking back, is it? It feels absolutely key to tackling current challenges and building a more prosperous, more equitable continent.
That's exactly right. Women's empowerment isn't simply a moral imperative, although, again, it is. It's fundamentally a strategic necessity for sustainable development in Africa. It really is about rectifying those deep-seated historical injustices we discussed and, crucially, unlocking the immense, often untapped potential of half the population. This potential is just critical for tackling everything from poverty and health disparities to economic stagnation and, as we just touched on, climate vulnerability.
So let's leave our listeners with a final thought. Consider this. If those colonial powers back then had chosen to actually build upon rather than dismantle the existing structures of female power and influence they found,
It's interesting hypothetical.
what might the trajectory of African development have looked like then? And maybe more importantly, what can we learn from that history for ensuring truly inclusive and sustainable development globally? How do we make sure we fully recognize and integrate the potential of women everywhere, today and tomorrow?